So we should all care about the digital employee experience. And this afternoon, I'm actually going to tell you why we should all care. So let me start by introducing you to a couple of people that I've spent a bit of time with recently. So this is Nicola. Nicola is a nurse and she's part of Ward 3A. I spent a morning with Nicola, a couple of hours in her environment, using something called workplace inquiry. Basically what that means is following Nicola around and hanging out with her. Being as invisible as I possibly can be at 6'1", which isn't always easy. I watched her, listened to her, observed, and asked the odd question. One of the first things I saw when Nicola walked into the ward was she took her mobile phone out of her pocket and she popped it in a bucket. And I kind of went, okay, didn't say anything. She went off onto the ward with her patients, so I followed. Anyway, we spent the morning. I saw her looking at pieces of paper, interacting with patients. She'd have the odd chat to me, and then at some point she'd walk back to the nurses' station. And if you imagine a nurses' station in a hospital, most people have been in a hospital at one point in their lives. And imagine this nurses' station. Now, there's 3 computers. How many people do you think there are on a ward in a hospital, as in staff? 15,000. And I'm really bad shot, so. Let's just say 30, right? There's probably more. This is one ward. 3 computers. She's a nurse. Guess who gets #1 billing for computers? Bingo. Oh, I'll throw that to you later. Doctors. So Nicola's mobile phone is in the bucket. 30 people vying for 3 computers, and she's behind 5 doctors. Okay. So I keep watching Nicola. Next thing, she walks up to what they call a cow. Now, excuse my accent, hopefully you figured that out. So a cow is not the thing that you milk. A cow is a computer on wheels. They did have to stop calling it a cow because one of the patients heard and got offended because they thought they were calling the patient a cow. So they changed the name. But she walked up to the cow and she said to me, oh, this is better than the one that we have in the emergency department. Like, okay, tell me more. She said, well, emergency department, you know what it's like. You don't know who you're going to get in at any given time, and it's locked to the trolley. So imagine laptop sitting on a trolley. She said it's locked to the trolley. But the problem with that was that the way it's locked down is you have your laptop and then there's a piece covering the keyboard. Anyone see any problems with that? Yeah, you have a separate keyboard. Still, any problems with that? Where's the on button? So they'd actually cracked it so they could lift it up and press the on button. Yeah, so you can start to understand what advantages there are of observing Nicola in her own environment. Would I have understood any of that if I had have met with Nicola in the tea room? If I had have taken her for coffee? Now, when this particular client said to me, Beck, we need to deliver to these nurses on their mobile devices. Already I'm seeing a problem with that. Nicola's device is in a bucket. She's not allowed to get it until her break or the end of the day. Small problem. So that's just a short story. I found out much, much more. Now, this can be done in such a short space of time. This is a cow, computer on wheels. This isn't the one that was hacked. This is something else I saw. Bookmarks. So this is how the nurses found the information that they needed. In case you can't see that, that's the password in the top left-hand corner on that big yellow sticky note that's screaming out, "Look at me, everyone, here's how you get into this computer." Now, funnily enough, in the bottom left of that picture, you might see what looks like a little swipe touchpad. So the idea now was that instead of having to type it in, because multiple people use this computer, you just use your security badge and you tap on it. But the problem is, if you tap on it and don't log out, you then have to type in that password that's on the yellow sticky note. Okay, so Jared was talking before about solving a problem, but not necessarily the right problem. And yeah, my desktop might look like this. But I'm not saving lives. Okay. So, for those of you that have ever worked in an organisation where you have a roster, these are just a few of the ways that these nurses see when they're working. Now, believe it or not, yes, these still do exist. When I said to the nurses, well, what happens if there's a change? Well, we have to check the board. So what happens if you're at home? We might get a text message. So in this particular hospital, what they did was they just found a third-party app on their own. This was not linked to the hospital whatsoever, where they actually took their piece of paper from their rosters and typed it in. Now, interestingly, the hospital who I was doing the work for and the research didn't actually know this was going on. They were like, that's cool, why didn't we think of that? So let me now introduce you to Peter. So I donned my steel cap boots, my security gear, my safety gear, my hard hat, beautiful orange shirt, and I jumped in Peter's truck. There's not much space. And I spent a couple of hours with him out on the road. He works for a water utility. So it was an early start. It was around 4 a.m. So he had to be at the depot for a meeting, first up, and then to get his jobs for the day. Now, if you had to get on the computer to have a look at anything, apply for leave, do any of that kind of stuff, you had to actually get to the depot even earlier because you couldn't access anything on any other device. Now, I live in Queensland, which is much like the temperature of California. It gets really, really hot in summer. And so you might see the tablet there, or the tough book that he has. Now, that tough book, if it gets too hot, it just turns off. How I found that out was we jumped out of the truck to actually fix a pipe, a burst water main, and he left the truck running. And I was like, don't you want to take the keys out of the truck? And he was like, oh, I can't, because if I turn the truck off, the tablet might get too hot, and then I can't actually enter the job or see where I'm going next. Right, again, if I was in a meeting room, would I have understood that? But we're giving this guy a tablet, and he can access all these jobs, and he can do what he needs to do, almost, provided he has Wi-Fi. You don't really have Wi-Fi out there. They can't connect in any other in any other way, it doesn't have 4G, and provided it doesn't get too hot, it's all good. Okay, small problem. So the other couple of things of note is you might see that green piece of paper that he's kind of pointing at. That green chart is actually the codes that he needs to be able to type into the tablet to classify a particular job. Now, if we're talking about digital employee experience, shouldn't it just come up? In the middle of the truck, where those folders and other things are, that's all these safety notices and all the other paper that he's given on a day. So, the experience that we want to provide to staff is super important for these job roles and beyond. What we must focus on is delivering a great employee experience, not the experience that I witnessed from these two people. I've heard lots of people at this conference and others talking about putting employees at the heart of everything they do. Who has said that in their life? Okay, keep your hand up if you have actually gone and put yourself in the situation with those people. Okay, you guys can, I'm not going to throw that far, so yeah, you can all have one later. Well done. Those of you that haven't but have said, yes, we must put employees at the heart of everything we do, actually go and do it. It doesn't take a lot of time. And you know what? These guys are super appreciative to have you there. Yeah, you might have to blend in. If you work in a hospital, I'll give you some tips about emergency departments. I had one person almost faint on me that was actually shadowing me in the research, so there's a few tips there. But it's super important to understand their world, because you can't actually design for someone who not only you haven't met, but you haven't understood. So at step 2, we're not at all afraid of using the I word. They're not dead, they're not irrelevant, and as far as we're concerned, they're quite the opposite. The intranet is still alive. But modern intranets play a really key part, especially as the enterprise front door. So I did a workshop the other day, and people were talking about the complexity of their technology landscape and the complexity of their organisation. And that digital front door becomes more and more important when you have multiple systems doing the same and also different things. So there is a bigger picture. Intranets fit within that broader digital workplace. So hands up everyone who's got a digital workplace. Ooh, nice. Okay, now, really, hands up who has a digital workplace. Now, everyone put your hand up. You're not listening. Okay, everyone has a digital workplace. Since the introduction of email and everything else, you all have a digital workplace. It may be terrible, which is probably why you didn't put your hand up, but it's there. Now, what we need to do is make that digital employee experience awesome. For me, a great digital employee experience is effortless. It's seamless, it's easy, and it's productive. Can anyone say their digital workplace or digital employee experience is like that? It's okay, lots of room for improvement. So So what we are focusing on now is the digital employee experience. Most organisations understand customer experience. There's been bucket loads of money poured into customer experience, poured into understanding your customers and how they work. But finally, people are realising that actually you can't deliver great customer service without having great employee experience. So we're doing lots of thinking and writing in this space, and it's really becoming a global phenomenon. I know others have talked about user experience. Jared talked about it. It's been around for a long time. But what it's now allowing us to do, this digital employee experience, is it's allowing us to start to have conversations, and conversations with those people that hold the purse strings. Let me tell you more. So it's powerful because it allows you to drive things at the strategic level down, and from staff needs up. So we're going to explore this in 3 different ways, starting with senior leaders, and then examining innovation and wrapping up with human needs. So looking at top down, I'm finally finding, for many years I've been banging on about employee experience and making it easy for our staff. But senior leaders often still don't get it, because why do you think? Yep, customers are supposed to be the focus. Any other ideas? Do they actually use the intranet or the digital workplace? Or do they have someone that does all this stuff for them? So often they don't experience the pain that the rest of us experience. But now they're starting to experience that more. Okay. So the digital employee experience is allowing us to drive innovation, but it's also putting the focus on humans. Let's start with your CEO. What makes him or her passionate? Any ideas? Revenue. Okay, money. Sorry, what was? Shareholder value, yeah. Will they stand up at your yearly town hall or whatever you call it to promote the importance of the intranet or the digital workplace as driving business success? No. So what about the digital workplace? Do they even know what it is? Getting a couple of shaking heads. Still no. What about staff engagement? That's starting to get close. Staff engagement surveys. How many times have you heard engagement's low? So, employee experience. Will they be talking about that? Does that actually connect to staff engagement? Of course it does. How many times have we heard that, hang on a second, I can do this outside the enterprise? So Susan and others have shown graphs and percentages of staff engagement. And it's well recognised that this is a problem. So apparently, only 32% of people in the US are engaged in the organisation. But it's got to be better elsewhere in the world, right? No. So these figures are horrible. And they've got to be discussed by senior leaders. So this is allowing us to start having those conversations. So if you're a big bank, you've had customer experience for a really long time. They've redesigned the website, the mobile app, all the way through to the physical store. But as I mentioned before, you can't have great customer experience without great employee experience. So how many times have you walked into a bank and they've said, hang on a second, let me try and find that for you. Be with you in just a second. Unless you're doing a very simple transaction. So one of the most powerful ways of communicating, Jared talked about scenarios. But what great DEX looks like is a day in the life narrative. And James Robertson my boss created this a number of years ago now, to talk about Sarah's first day at work and to describe what that should look like. And this walks through the excitement of Sarah having a new job, but also how scared she is on the first day of doing the wrong thing. Part of the story looks at Morris, their intranet, providing a getting started box on the homepage. Very simple, but better than showing up to your desk and being told, oh, I'll just be back in half an hour, just amuse yourself, have a look at the intranet. Well, where do I even start? And when she takes her first work trip, she can quickly and easily see her corporate passport that pulls together automatically all of the things that she needs to know. And of course, she can see this on her mobile device. So we have a free white paper that you're welcome to download and see more. Now, while digital transformation is often talked about, it hasn't really touched the employee experience yet, but this is changing. We're now seeing real innovation, including from our Platinum winner at the Internet and Digital Workplace Awards this year, Liberty Mutual, who will also be presenting at 4 o'clock today. So this, with Liberty Mutual, it is the strongest real-world example of digital employee experience that we've seen, which is why they won our Platinum Award. It's a digital assistant that is surfaced through many channels, and it's also remarkably scalable and sustainable. This is their intranet homepage, which I'm not going to talk about. Instead, I'm going to briefly touch on their digital assistant, not to take too much away from their presentation later on today. It's the strip down on the left-hand side. Let's get a high-level look, and then we'll look at each feature in a bit more detail. Important messages outside of email are targeted by location and business. Their to-dos are generated by systems. Sorry, I'm distracted by next door. Team members and manager. They have approvals from across enterprise systems. How many of you are currently getting hundreds and hundreds of emails a week from various systems saying you need to approve this, or someone's changed this, or did you know about this? It's all in one spot. Their profile, payslip, and time planner is also in one place. And they have a chat bot. Hands up in the room. Anyone else experimenting or have a chat bot? Oh, we have a few. Do your employees use it? Yeah? Okay. Does it work? Experimenting?
If it's needed, correct.
If you feed it correctly, yeah. I was actually talking to the gang at Liberty yesterday and saying my favourite thing to do when someone says we have a chatbot is to ask it 3 simple HR questions and see if it knows the answer. And so far, not many of them do. So this is an example of diving deeper into DEX. It's possible to apply for leave within the app, and more features coming soon. So those of you that may have struggled or as employees struggled through HRIS systems that are particularly difficult to use, how nice would it be to be able to see how much leave you have and then actually apply in the same place without going to a separate interface, without having to go, which button do I click on again? And for those of you that, there are some out there that still don't have single sign-on, actually having to log in as well. And I like to think this is the novelty feature of the day, the digital assistant on an iWatch. Well, why not? Some people may find this annoying, but hey, I'm sure these guys will talk more about that. And so on something a little more like what most of you might have, this is a recent example from Swisscom as they work towards their own digital workplace and broader DEX. Their personalised homepage starts with communications, followed by blog posts, a corporate calendar, and communications has control over what appears where and what remains sticky. It is targeted and tailored, however. Personalised work page contains links, Ask the Brain, an activity stream, links to collaboration spaces, location information, recent costs, and a lot more. So this is thinking about what it is those different people that we met earlier need and how to actually provide that to them. What's powerful is that they've custom built their own digital employee experience as a layer that sits on top of all existing applications, including SharePoint, HR systems, and all the others. Their APIs provide the integration layer and saving a huge task when they have to change everything. So turning it now to the bottom up, it puts a clear focus on our people, something that we've been passionate about at Step 2 for over 20 years. Rambler are an online media firm in Russia, running a whole range of high-profile sites. They're the top 3 Russian internet companies. And so what I particularly like about this example, some of it's translated, some of it's not, so if anyone can speak Russian, come and see me afterwards. But what I particularly like about this is the elegant way that they allow people to tailor their own experience. So how many of you have heard, I only want to see the news that is important to me? How many of you are able to deliver that? Oh, good. Okay. So they've taken it a step further. There's targeted news, but then an employee can also say, actually, I want to turn on these other things as well. You've identified that these things are important to me, but actually I want to see a bunch of others too. And it's a super simple interface. We all know how to turn something on or off. It doesn't get much simpler than this. Hire or fire. Yes, that is the direct translation. The goal is to simplify staff movements across the business. Recruitment is just one of those business processes that they've automated. And what's not shown here is the integration with the online recruitment sites. that they use to provide a database of all potential candidates. Its focus is on delivering solutions to humans with that human-centred design consideration on every page. Thinking again to what we're trying to achieve, bringing that digital employee experience together. In this particular example, Ramboll have made a connection between content and collaboration. How many of you say, content's over here, it's on the intranet? Well, collaboration, actually that's in Teamsites or Yammer or whatever or whatever or whatever. And never the two shall mix. I've been working with a school who, in talking to teachers, they say, well, we have lots of students with special needs. And we're always looking for ways to help those students. So they can search on the intranet and find the latest tools and techniques to help children with ADHD, as an example. But actually, a lot of those teachers that I spoke with didn't know there was a really active community of teachers on Yammer talking about how to support students with ADHD. Now, how should they know about that community? Yeah, there's lots of different techniques that we can do, but hang on a second. Isn't this one of the most simplest ways that we can connect that content with the community? So what have we talked about here? We've looked at the power of DEX from a top-down perspective, from engaging with those senior leaders, the ones that hold the purse strings. We've also looked at that bottom-up focus on humans. You are the people who will be driving change over the coming years, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you're going to do to improve the digital employee experience in small or big ways. Don't make your employees wait. Dream big, but deliver often. Thank you. And I'm happy, I think we've got some time. I'm happy to take some questions, and those people who I didn't throw koalas to, feel free to come up at the end and grab them. And if anyone wants to tell me the saddest design story or digital workplace story or intranet story, I have 2 books to give away. Otherwise, happy to answer questions. Yeah.
Simple squirrel question here. So what are your 3 questions for the chatbot?
Oh, okay. My 3 questions for the chatbot. Number 1 is how much annual leave do I have, or how much leave do I have? Number 2 is, can I apply for leave? And the third one, this is when jet lag sets in. What's my third one? What's the maternity leave policy? 3 simple HR questions. If the bot can't answer those 3, we're in trouble. So look at your search engine reports though. See what people are searching for. Type those into the bot, see what happens. Yeah.
How much have you seen organizations going beyond these typical HR, corporate services, optimization of the intranet and getting more into the operations?
We have always said that there's 5 purposes of an intranet: content, communication, collaboration, culture, and activity. Activity is that business improvement side where intranets and digital workplaces really shine. It's that helping me do my job rather than just a place to go and read or get communications. How many do we see pushing those bounds? All of the successful ones. And to be honest, more and more. The arguments that I am having at the moment are generally with CIOs who are saying, well, actually, no, Beck, that's not your place. We do business intelligence, business improvement, all of that kind of stuff. But actually, they do it with a technology focus. They kind of say, okay, well, here's the technology, what can it do? as opposed to, well, what's the problem and how can we actually fix that with the technology? Not sure if that answered your question. Yeah. Getting there? Okay, happy to have more of a conversation about that. Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of companies, the employees are very different, especially in businesses which have different business units, each of which do different things. So you have different employee personas, right? And there could be software developers, there could be statisticians, there could be consultants, and each of them have a different set of requirements. So how do you ensure that you're seeing, one size fits all in terms of your digital
Yeah, there is no one size fits all. So your job is to actually understand as many of those different personas as you can. Now, anyone who has done true personas will know that really you're probably only going to have 6 to 8. If you're Mayo Clinic, they had many, many more. But yeah, so what I would say is, as part of your research, understand who those people are, look at your HR data, get numbers, and pick the ones that are different and specialised. So there'll be a lot of commonalities across your users. Look for the differences. But yeah, you should not have one common digital employee experience. I don't think I've seen one yet.
So, sorry,
Yeah.
follow-up question.
Yeah.
Probably it might become your status story as well. Trying to build that single user interface, we have gone through 5 different versions of the internet.
Right.
And the latest version of the system is going to be launched in December. And what has consequently happened is that now we have multiple systems. So there is the intranet, and then there is a separate knowledge management portal that is being built. What is the industry that's right? What's the difference then between the intranet and the KM portal? Because we are sending these messages to employees saying, this is your first port of call, and then next week you say, no, it's not the intranet, it's the KM portal. Why would one, sorry, you know what I'm talking about.
I totally do. And yes, you get a book. Yeah, it's a longer conversation. It's something that we see is common, especially when one particular thing doesn't meet the needs. Then everyone else goes, oh, that doesn't work, so let's create another one. Yeah, because that was a good idea. So talking about, I'm not doing a presentation on it this year, but I have in the past, creating that enterprise front door can help bring those disparate systems together. But there's a longer conversation about how you should look at the disparate systems and the change management and everything else so that you don't have the 8th intranet. Yeah.
Just to add to that,
Go for it.
This is near dear to my heart. A lot of that can be done behind the scenes with the profile. We start struggling with this on. Mostly about the data you have about your employees and using that as a better tool. So if you can still leverage the same internet,
Yeah.
bring those capabilities together, so you don't have to struggle with a bunch of redesign.
Definitely.
Now what that personal profile and the personalization is in line with the desired environment.
Yeah.
It's really never about how many personas you have, because a lot of that identity management is taken care of by what systems you have. Which is based on one persona you build. So how do you bring all those together? You leverage that data and the identity things, the access that you have, and then automatically differentiate. Or build their own persona based on what they do today. So it's just a different way to think about it. Not so much from the front end, but think about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. Any other questions? Yeah.
Just a private status story, but my husband works for a company in California, but we live in Minneapolis. And the perceived security concerns of this health insurance company are such that he actually can use the internet as a distributed employee, and because partly he prefers to use Mac computers, which they will not permit.
Support.
Yeah, they won't be able to use the internet, so he has to actually, in violation of company policy,
Okay, you can have it a book. And you can give it to your husband and he can give it to his company. Any other questions? No? Okay, well, thank you all very much. And I'm around